Maya Johnson walked through the airport with confident steps. Her high heels clicked on the shiny floor as she checked the time on her expensive watch. She was early for her flight from New York to San Francisco, just as she liked to be. Maya was always prepared and professional. At 42 years old, she had worked very hard for everything she had. Today had been a good day. Maya had just closed a $50 million deal for her company, Horizon Innovations. She had started this tech company by herself 10 years ago. Back then, many people told her she would fail. They said a black woman couldn't succeed in the tech world. But Maya proved them all wrong. Now her company was worth billions and big businesses wanted to work with her. Maya reached the special line for first-class passengers. She always flew first class now. It wasn't just because she could afford it. It was because she worked nonstop and needed the comfort and quiet to rest or prepare for meetings. Today, she just wanted to relax after her big morning meeting. The young man at the check-in desk smiled at Maya. "Good afternoon, Ms. Johnson. We're happy to have you flying with us today." He quickly checked her in and directed her to the first-class lounge. In the quiet lounge, Maya sipped a glass of water and answered some emails. She thought about her latest business move that nobody knew about yet. 3 months ago, her company had bought most of Skyway Airlines, the very airline she was flying with today. She had kept this news quiet on purpose. Maya wanted to see how the airline really worked before she made any changes. She wanted to experience what regular customers experienced. When it was time to board the plane, Maya joined the line for first-class passengers. She wore a simple but elegant black dress with a light gray jacket. Her natural hair was styled in a neat bun, and she wore small diamond earrings that had been a gift from her late mother. Maya looked like a successful businesswoman, but she didn't flash her wealth or status. On the plane, a flight attendant named Claire welcomed passengers with a warm smile. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Johnson. Your seat is 2A by the window." Maya thanked her and found her seat. The first-class cabin had just 12 seats, arranged in pairs with plenty of space between them. Maya put her small bag in the overhead compartment and sat down. The leather seat was wide and comfortable. She took out her phone to switch it to airplane mode. A white businessman in his 50s took the seat next to Maya. He nodded politely at her. "Frank Miller," he introduced himself with a quick handshake. "Maya Johnson," she replied with a professional smile. More passengers boarded the plane, filling up the first-class cabin. Maya noticed she was the only black person in first class. This wasn't unusual in her experience. She had often been the only person of color in business meetings, fancy restaurants, and exclusive events. It was something she had learned to live with, though it still bothered her sometimes. Once all passengers were seated, a male flight attendant named Kevin Porter began the pre-flight service. He moved through the first-class cabin with a tray of champagne glasses. Maya watched as he offered drinks to the passengers in the first row. "Champagne before takeoff?" Kevin asked the passengers with a bright smile. The passengers in row 1 accepted their glasses with thanks. Kevin continued to the row across from Maya and Frank. Again, he offered champagne with the same cheerful expression. "Champagne before takeoff?" When Kevin turned toward Maya's row, something strange happened. He offered a glass to Frank, but then turned away without offering anything to Maya. He continued to the row behind them. Maya raised her hand slightly to get his attention. "Excuse me," she said politely. Kevin glanced at her but continued serving the passengers behind her. Maya lowered her hand, a small frown forming on her face. Maybe he was in a hurry and would come back. She decided to wait and see. Frank sipped his champagne and looked at Maya with slight confusion. He seemed to notice the odd treatment, but didn't say anything. The plane took off on time. The captain announced they would reach San Francisco in about 6 hours. Once they reached cruising altitude, the flight attendants began preparing the meal service. Maya opened the menu card in the pocket in front of her. The first-class menu looked impressive. It offered a starter of fresh garden salad or creamy tomato soup. The main course options were seared scallops with risotto, filet mignon with roasted vegetables or vegetable lasagna. Dessert was either chocolate cake or fresh fruit. It was much better than the simple sandwiches served in economy class. Kevin returned with a colleague named Patricia Allen to serve meals. Patricia took drink orders while Kevin set up white tablecloths for each passenger. "What would you like? To drink, sir?" Patricia asked Frank. "Red wine, please," Frank replied. Patricia turned to Maya. "And for you?" "Sparkling water with lemon, please," Maya said. Patricia nodded and moved to the next row. Kevin laid out tablecloths for each passenger, including Frank, but again skipped Maya. When he finished with everyone else, he finally returned and quickly placed a tablecloth on Maya's tray table without making eye contact. As the meal service began, Kevin and Patricia served the first-class passengers their chosen starters. The food looked delicious. The garden salad had fresh greens, cherry tomatoes, cucumber slices, and a light vinaigrette. The tomato soup was served in elegant white bowls with a swirl of cream on top. When Kevin reached Maya, his friendly smile disappeared. "I'm sorry, but we're out of the premium starters. We have a sandwich from the economy meal if you'd like. That instead?" Maya looked around. Every other passenger in first class had received either the salad or the soup. Frank beside her was enjoying his soup. "That's strange," Maya said calmly. "I can see everyone else has received the advertised meal options." Kevin's face hardened slightly. "As I said, we're out. Would you like the sandwich or not?" Frank stopped eating and looked up with surprise at Kevin's tone. He glanced at Maya's empty table and then at his own soup. "That doesn't make sense," Frank said quietly to Maya. "I just heard them tell the gentleman across the aisle that they have plenty of everything left." Maya nodded slightly at Frank, appreciating his observation. She turned back to Kevin. "I'd like to speak to the lead flight attendant, please." Kevin's fake smile returned. "Patricia is busy serving other passengers. I'll let her know when she's available." He walked away without bringing Maya any food. Maya sat with her empty table while everyone around her enjoyed their first-class meals. She felt a familiar feeling in her stomach, the same feeling she had experienced many times before when facing discrimination. It wasn't just disappointment or anger. It was a tired recognition that some people would always see her skin color before seeing her as a person. Frank looked uncomfortable with the situation. "That was clearly not right," he said to Maya. "Would you like to share my starter? I haven't touched this side of the plate." Maya smiled at his kindness, but shook her head. "Thank you, but that's not necessary." She took out her phone and sent a text message to her executive assistant, Olivia Garcia. "Please send me the crew information for Skyway Airlines Flight AC-189 today, and connect me with Daniel Wright, the airline's COO, as soon as possible." Maya knew that as the new owner of the airline, she had every right to check who was working on this flight. She wanted to understand if this treatment was a one-time problem or part of a pattern. Either way, she would address it properly. A younger flight attendant named Brittany Nelson passed by and noticed Maya's empty table. She stopped with a confused expression. "Haven't you been served yet?" she asked. "No," Maya replied. "Kevin informed me that there were no premium meal options available for me." Brittany's eyes widened with surprise. "That's not true at all. We have plenty of everything. Let me get you whatever you'd like right away." As Brittany hurried to the galley, Maya saw Kevin pull her aside and whisper something. Brittany looked confused and then concerned as she glanced back at Maya. This confirmed Maya's suspicions. What was happening wasn't a mistake or confusion. It was deliberate. Maya took a deep breath and prepared herself for what would come next. She had faced discrimination before, but this time was different. This time, she had the power to do something about it. Brittany returned with Patricia walking close behind her. Maya could tell from their faces that an interesting conversation was about to happen. She straightened in her seat, her expression calm but determined. Patricia Allen stood next to Maya's seat with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was in her late 40s with short blonde hair and wore her lead flight attendant uniform with perfect neatness. Everything about her looked proper and professional except for the cold look in her eyes. "Is there a problem here?" Patricia asked. Her voice was polite, but her tone suggested Maya was being difficult. Maya looked up at Patricia calmly. "Yes, there is. I was skipped during the champagne service before takeoff. And now I'm told there are no first-class meal options available for me, while everyone else has been served. Patricia glanced around quickly. Other first-class passengers were watching with interest. Frank, sitting next to Maya, had stopped eating his meal. "I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding," Patricia said. "Sometimes we run out of certain items." Maya cut her off gently. "Every single person in first class has received the advertised meal except me. And your colleague Brittany just confirmed you have plenty of everything left." Brittany stood slightly behind Patricia, looking uncomfortable. She nodded slightly when Maya mentioned her name. Patricia's smile became even more forced. "Let me check on this for you." She turned and walked quickly to the galley area, pulling Kevin aside for a private conversation. While they were talking, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Olivia, her executive assistant. "Crew information attached. Daniel Wright is expecting your call when you're ready." Maya opened the attachment and quickly read through the information about the flight crew. She saw photos and basic information about all the attendants working on today's flight. Kevin Porter had been with the airline for 8 years. Patricia Allen had been with them for 15 years. Brittany Nelson was relatively new, only 2 years into the job. More interesting was what Maya found at the bottom of the document. There had been 3 complaints against Kevin in the past year for inconsistent service standards. 2 of those complaints were filed by passengers of color. Patricia had 1 complaint for dismissive behavior toward a family that had been seated in first class. The family had an Indian last name. Maya's suspicions were confirmed. This wasn't just about her. There seemed to be a pattern of behavior that had gone unchecked. While she was reading, Frank leaned over slightly. "I don't mean to intrude," he said quietly, "but what they're doing isn't right. I've flown first class dozens of times, and I've never seen service like this." Maya appreciated his support. "Thank you for noticing," she said simply. Frank nodded. "I travel for business a lot, and I've seen this kind of thing happen to colleagues of mine. It's never acceptable." Patricia returned to Maya's seat, this time carrying a tray with food. She placed a plate in front of Maya that looked nothing like what the other passengers had received. It was a simple sandwich with a small side salad, clearly the economy class meal option. "This is all we have available," Patricia said with fake regret in her voice. "I apologize for the inconvenience." Maya looked at the sandwich and then back at Patricia. "This is not the first-class meal that I paid for." "As I explained, we've run out of the premium options," Patricia insisted. At that moment, Brittany approached with another tray. On it was a proper first-class meal, the seared scallops with risotto that Maya had seen other passengers enjoying. "I found this one in the galley," Brittany said, looking nervously at Patricia. It was set aside. Patricia's face flushed with anger. She gave Brittany a sharp look that promised trouble later. Brittany stood her ground, though she looked afraid. "Thank you, Brittany," Maya said warmly. She turned to Patricia. "It seems there was a meal available after all." Patricia took the economy meal away without another word. Brittany placed the proper meal in front of Maya and hurried away before Patricia could say anything to her. Maya finally had her proper first-class meal, but the situation left a bad taste in her mouth. It wasn't about the food. It was about being treated differently because of how she looked. It was something Maya had dealt with her entire career, but she never got used to it. And now that she owned this airline, she wasn't going to let it continue. Maya ate a few bites of her meal, though she wasn't very hungry anymore. She decided it was time to make her call. She pressed a button to call Daniel Wright, the Chief Operations Officer of Skyway Airlines. Daniel answered quickly. "Ms. Johnson, I wasn't expecting to hear from you today. Is everything all right?" "Not exactly, Daniel," Maya said quietly. "I'm currently on flight AC-189 to San Francisco, and I've encountered a situation that concerns me." Maya explained what had happened, being skipped for champagne, being told there were no proper meals available, and the clear difference in how she was being treated compared to other passengers. "That's completely unacceptable," Daniel said, his voice serious. "I'm sorry you're experiencing this, Ms. Johnson. I'm not just concerned as a passenger," Maya continued. "I'm concerned as the owner of this airline. This kind of behavior reflects poorly on our company and makes me wonder how many other passengers have been treated this way. There was a pause on the line. I understand, Daniel said finally. What would you like me to do? I'd like you to review the security footage from this flight, Maya said. I also want you to pull up any past complaints about these specific crew members, and I'd like you to contact Samantha Lewis in HR and have her join this conversation. Right away, Daniel replied. Give me 10 minutes to gather that information and get Samantha on the line. While Maya waited, she observed the crew. Kevin was avoiding her section of the cabin completely now. Patricia was serving other passengers with a perfect smile, acting as if nothing had happened. Brittany was working efficiently, but kept glancing nervously at Maya and Patricia. Frank finished his meal and turned to Maya. I hope you don't mind me saying, but you seem to be handling this with remarkable grace. I'd be furious. Maya gave him a small smile. I've had plenty of practice, she said, and getting angry rarely solves the problem. You mentioned being the owner of the airline, Frank said quietly. They don't know that, do they? Maya shook her head. No, they don't. My company acquired a controlling stake in Skyway Airlines 3 months ago, but we kept it quiet. I wanted to see how things were running before making any changes. Frank let out a low whistle. Well, it looks like you're going to have your first change to make. Maya nodded. Yes, it does. Her phone buzzed again. It was Daniel calling back. Ms. Johnson, I have Samantha Lewis with me now, and we've reviewed the footage from the flight. Hello, Ms. Johnson. Samantha's voice came through. I'm horrified by what we've seen in the footage. There's no question that you were deliberately given substandard service. We've also pulled up the complaint records, Daniel added. There's a concerning pattern with both Kevin Porter and Patricia Allen. They've had multiple complaints from passengers of color over the past 2 years, but none of them were properly addressed by previous management. Maya wasn't surprised. Too often, these kinds of complaints were dismissed or ignored. And what about Brittany Nelson? She asked. No complaints at all, Samantha replied. In fact, she has several commendations for excellent service. Maya thought about Brittany's attempt to help her despite pressure from her colleagues. It showed character and integrity. What would you like us to do, Ms. Johnson? Daniel asked. We can have a new crew meet the plane when it lands in San Francisco. Maya considered her options carefully. This wasn't just about one bad experience. It was about a culture that allowed discrimination to go unchecked. As the new owner of the airline, she had a responsibility to address it directly. I want both Kevin Porter and Patricia Allen removed from service immediately upon landing, Maya said firmly. Begin termination proceedings based on discriminatory behavior. The other crew members who witnessed this behavior without reporting, it should be suspended pending sensitivity training. And Brittany Nelson? Samantha asked. She tried to correct the situation at risk to herself, Maya said. I want her commended for that. In fact, I think she might be a good candidate for a training position focused on customer experience and inclusivity. We'll take care of everything, Daniel assured her. And Ms. Johnson, I want to personally apologize for your experience today. Thank you, Daniel, Maya said. I'll see you both when we land in San Francisco. As Maya ended the call, she felt a mix of emotions. She was angry about how she'd been treated, but she was also hopeful. As the owner of the airline, she had the power to make real changes. She could create a company culture where this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated. Maya looked out the window at the clouds below. In about 3 hours, they would land in San Francisco. And when they did, things were going to change. For the rest of the flight, Maya worked on her laptop. She tried to focus on business emails, but her mind kept going back to what had happened. She wasn't just thinking about herself. She was thinking about all the other people who might have faced the same treatment but didn't have the power to do anything about it. The flight was quiet now. Most passengers were watching movies or sleeping. Kevin and Patricia stayed away from Maya's seat, having Brittany serve her section instead. Brittany was polite and professional, bringing Maya fresh water and checking if she needed anything else. About an hour before landing, Frank returned from a walk around the cabin and sat down next to Maya. I couldn't help but notice that the Crew seems to be avoiding you now, he said quietly. Maya looked up from her laptop. Yes, they are. I've been on hundreds of flights, Frank said, and I've seen this kind of thing happen before. Usually people just accept it because what can they do? Complain to the airline and get a form letter apology? Maya nodded. That's exactly the problem. When people complain, they're often ignored or given empty apologies. Nothing really changes. But something will change this time? Frank asked. Yes, Maya said simply. This time will be different. Frank seemed curious. If you don't mind me asking, what does your company do? You mentioned you acquired the airline recently. Horizon Innovations is a tech company, Maya explained. We started with software solutions for businesses, but we've expanded into various industries. The airline acquisition was part of our growth strategy. Impressive, Frank said. I work for a venture capital firm. We're always looking for innovative companies to invest in. They talked a bit more about business. Maya appreciated the normal conversation after the stress of the earlier situation. It was a reminder that not everyone judged her by her skin color. As they neared San Francisco, the captain announced they would be landing soon. The crew began preparing the cabin for arrival. Patricia walked through the first-class cabin, checking that everyone's seat was upright and tray tables were stowed. When she reached Maya's row, she barely glanced at her before moving on. Maya noticed that Brittany looked nervous. The young flight attendant probably realized something serious was happening, though she couldn't know exactly what. When the plane landed and taxied to the gate, the captain made the usual announcement thanking passengers for flying with Skyway Airlines. The seatbelt sign turned off and people began standing up to get their bags. Maya stayed seated in no rush to leave. She watched as Patricia stood by the exit door, preparing to say goodbye to the passengers. Kevin was helping people get their bags from the overhead compartments. What they didn't know was that Daniel Wright and Samantha Lewis were waiting just outside the plane. As first-class passengers began to exit, Maya finally stood up and collected her small bag. Frank nodded to her as he prepared to leave. It was nice meeting you, Maya. I hope the rest of your day goes better than the flight. Thank you, Frank, Maya replied. I have a feeling it will. Maya waited until most first-class passengers had left before walking toward the exit. Patricia stood there with her professional smile, saying goodbye to each passenger. When she saw Maya approaching, her smile faltered slightly. Just as Maya reached the door, two people appeared in the jetway just outside the plane. One was a tall man in his early 50s wearing a sharp business suit. The other was a woman about Maya's age in a navy blue dress with a company badge. Maya recognized them immediately as Daniel Wright and Samantha Lewis. Ms. Johnson, Daniel said warmly, extending his hand. I apologize again for your experience today. Patricia's fake smile disappeared completely. Her face went pale as she realized who Maya was. Kevin, who was nearby helping with bags, stopped what he was doing and stared. Thank you for coming personally, Daniel, Maya said, shaking his hand. She turned to Samantha. And thank you for being here as well, Samantha. Of course, Ms. Johnson, Samantha replied. We take this matter very seriously. By now, Patricia had connected the dots. You're Maya Johnson? The Maya Johnson who bought Skyway Airlines? Maya turned to her calmly. Yes, I am. Though that information wasn't public yet. We were evaluating operations before making any announcements. Kevin had moved closer, his face showing shock and fear. I didn't know, he started to say. Maya interrupted him gently. Would it have made a difference if you had known who I was? Should it make a difference how you treat any passenger, regardless of who they are or what they look like? Kevin had no answer. He looked at the floor. Daniel turned to Patricia and Kevin. I need both of you to come with me immediately. Crew, members from another flight will take over your duties for the return flight. Patricia looked like she might argue, but one look at Daniel's serious face changed her mind. Yes, sir, she said quietly. As Patricia and Kevin were led away by an airline manager who had joined them, Brittany approached uncertainly. Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry about what happened. I tried to. You did the right thing, Brittany, Maya assured her. Thank you for that. Not everyone would have had the courage to stand up to their colleagues. Brittany looked relieved. I never felt comfortable with how they sometimes treated certain passengers. I just didn't know what to do about it. Well, now you do, Samantha said, joining the conversation. We'd like to speak with you later if that's okay. We think you might be able to help us improve our training programs. Brittany's eyes widened with surprise. Of course, I'd be happy to help. By now, all the passengers had left the plane. Maya, Daniel, and Samantha walked together through the jetway into the terminal. They found a quiet corner where they could talk privately. What happens now? Maya asked. Daniel had a folder with him. He opened it and showed Maya some documents. Based on the evidence we've reviewed, the video footage from the flight, the pattern of previous complaints, and your direct experience, we have clear grounds for termination of both Patricia Allen and Kevin Porter. The company policy on discrimination is very clear, Samantha added. Zero tolerance. They violated that policy repeatedly. Maya nodded. And the other crew members? Those who saw what was happening but did nothing will be suspended, Daniel explained. They'll need to complete our sensitivity training program before they can return to service. I don't want this to be just about punishing people, Maya said thoughtfully. I want it to be about changing the culture, making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Samantha smiled. That's exactly what we were hoping you'd say. We've already drafted a plan for company-wide training and policy updates. We'd like your input on it. They discussed the details of the plan. It included mandatory bias training for all employees, revised reporting systems for passengers who experienced discrimination, and new hiring practices to increase diversity among the crew. I'd also like to create an anonymous reporting system, Maya suggested. Not everyone feels comfortable filing formal complaints, especially if they've been made to feel unwelcome already. That's an excellent idea, Daniel agreed. We'll add it to the plan. As they walked toward the airport exit, Maya felt a mix of emotions. She was still angry about how she had been treated, but she also felt hopeful. This bad experience would lead to positive changes that would affect thousands of people. There's one more thing, Maya said as they reached the door. I want our legal team to review all previous discrimination complaints that were dismissed or ignored. If we find other employees with patterns like Patricia and Kevin, I want them addressed immediately. Daniel nodded. I'll have them start on that first thing tomorrow. Maya stepped outside into the bright California sunshine. A car was waiting to take her to her hotel. As she got in, she thought about the day's events. What had started as a simple business trip had turned into something much more important. She hadn't asked to be put in this situation. She hadn't wanted to be treated differently because of her race. But now that it had happened, she was going to use her position and power to make sure it didn't happen to others. Sometimes change came from unexpected places. Today, it had come from a denied meal on an airplane. Maya smiled to herself as the car pulled away from the curb. By the time she returned to New York, Skyway Airlines would already be a different company. The next morning, Maya woke up early in her hotel room in San Francisco. She had a busy day ahead with meetings about the airline changes, but her mind was still on yesterday's events. She got ready quickly, choosing a dark blue suit that made her look both powerful and approachable. At 8 o'clock, Maya entered a large meeting room at Skyway Airlines' San Francisco office. Daniel and Samantha were already there, along with several other executives. There was also a younger woman that Maya recognized as Brittany from the flight. Good morning, everyone, Maya said as she took her seat at the head of the table. Daniel stood up to start the meeting. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. As you know, yesterday we had a serious incident on one of our flights. Ms. Johnson, who is the new owner of Skyway Airlines, experienced discrimination from two of our crew members. The executives who hadn't heard the story looked shocked. Daniel continued, We've already taken immediate action. Patricia Allen and Kevin Porter have been removed from service and we're proceeding with formal termination. A man at the end of the table raised his hand. I'm Joe Harris, head of the Flight Attendants Union. While I don't condone discrimination in any way, I need to ask if proper procedures are being followed for termination. Maya appreciated the question. It was important that everything was done correctly. That's a fair concern, Joe, she said. Samantha, can you address this? Samantha nodded and opened a folder in front of her. We have video evidence from the flight showing clear differential treatment. We also have a pattern of similar complaints against both employees over the past 2 years, and we have direct testimony from other crew members, including Brittany here. She gestured to the young flight attendant. All procedures are being followed correctly. Joe nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we're doing this right. We are, Maya assured him. This isn't about punishing 2 people. It's about setting a standard for the whole company. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, whether they're the CEO or a first-time flyer in economy class. The room was quiet as everyone took in her words. Maya continued. Now, let's talk about the changes we need to make. I don't want this to be a one-day story that everyone forgets next week. I want real, lasting change. For the next 2 hours, they discussed detailed plans. Samantha presented a new training program focused on recognizing and preventing bias. Daniel showed data on passenger complaints that had been ignored in the past. Maya listened carefully to everyone's ideas, asking questions and offering suggestions. What about Brittany? Maya asked, looking at the young flight attendant who had been quiet during most of the meeting. You were the only one who tried to correct the situation yesterday. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Brittany looked nervous but spoke clearly. I think part of the problem is that many employees are afraid to speak up when they see something wrong. They worry about creating tension with their colleagues or even losing their jobs. We need a system where people feel safe reporting problems. That's an excellent point, Maya said. Samantha, can we add that to our plan? A clear system for employees to report discrimination they witness, with protection from retaliation? Samantha made a note. Absolutely. We'll make it anonymous and easily accessible. As the meeting continued, Maya noticed that people were becoming more engaged and enthusiastic. What had started as a response to a bad situation was turning into an opportunity to make the airline better for everyone. Near the end of the meeting, a woman named Linda Chen, who was in charge of customer experience, raised her hand. Ms. Johnson, I have a suggestion. We've been talking about how to prevent discrimination, but what about actively celebrating diversity? We could highlight the different backgrounds of our staff and the destinations we serve. Maya smiled. I love that idea, Linda. Let's not just avoid the negative. Let's embrace the positive aspects of diversity. By the time the meeting ended, they had a comprehensive plan. It included new training programs, updated policies, a reporting system, and initiatives to promote diversity throughout the company. As people gathered their things to leave, Maya asked Brittany to stay behind. When they were alone, Maya sat down across from the young woman. I want to thank you again for what you did yesterday, Maya said. It took courage. Brittany shook her head slightly. I just did what was right. I wish I had done more sooner. You did more than anyone else, Maya pointed out. And that's why I want to offer you a new position. Samantha and I were discussing creating a role focused on passenger experience and inclusivity training. We think you'd be perfect for it. Brittany's eyes widened. Me? But I've only been with the airline for 2 years. Sometimes fresh perspectives are exactly what's needed, Maya said. You saw a problem and tried to fix it, even when it wasn't easy. That's the kind of person we need in this role. Brittany thought for a moment. What exactly would I be doing? You would help develop and deliver our new training programs, Maya explained. You would also review passenger complaints related to discrimination and suggest improvements. It would mean a promotion and a raise, of course. A slow smile spread across Brittany's face. I would be honored to take on this role. Thank you for this opportunity, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for earning it, Maya replied. And please call me Maya. After Brittany left, Maya stayed in the meeting room to review some documents. She felt good about how things were going. The airline was already changing for the better. Her phone rang. It was Olivia, her executive assistant back in New York. Maya, I have some news you should know about. The story about what happened on your flight has somehow leaked to the press. It's starting to appear on business news websites. Maya wasn't entirely surprised. Something like this was bound to get out. What are they saying? Most of the coverage is actually positive, Olivia said. They're portraying you as a CEO who took a stand against discrimination. But there's also speculation about how this will affect Skyway Airlines' reputation. Maya thought for a moment. Call our PR team. Let's get ahead of this story. I want to make a statement about the positive changes we're implementing at the airline. This isn't about one bad experience, it's about making sure everyone is treated with respect. I'll set it up right away, Olivia said. And Maya? A lot of people are saying you did the right thing. After ending the call, Maya looked out the window at the planes taking off and landing at San Francisco Airport. Each one carried hundreds of people from different backgrounds, all deserving of the same level of service and respect. Later that afternoon, Maya held a press conference in the airline's main conference room. Reporters from various news outlets were present, eager to hear her statement. Yesterday I experienced discrimination on one of our flights, Maya began. It was disappointing and hurtful, but today, I'm not here to talk about that negative experience. I'm here to talk about the positive changes that will come from it. She outlined the new initiatives that would be implemented across the airline, emphasizing that this was about creating a better experience for all passengers and employees. At Skyway Airlines, we believe that diversity is our strength, she continued. Moving forward, we will not only prevent discrimination but actively celebrate the differences that make our company and our customers unique. As she spoke, Maya could see the reporters typing rapidly on their laptops and phones. This story was going to get attention, but it would be the story she wanted told, not just about one incident, but about a company committed to positive change. When she finished her statement, hands shot up with questions. Maya answered them clearly and confidently, never shying away from the truth but always focusing on the path forward. By the time the press conference ended, Maya felt a sense of accomplishment. What had started as a personal affront had become a catalyst for meaningful change. Sometimes that was how progress happened, not through grand plans but through people standing up when they faced injustice. 6 months had passed since the incident on the airplane. Maya sat in her office in New York looking at a report on her desk. It showed the results of all the changes that had been made at Skyway Airlines. The numbers were impressive. Passenger complaints about unequal treatment had dropped by 78%. Employee satisfaction had increased by 42%. And most importantly, passenger satisfaction scores from people of color had risen dramatically. Maya smiled as she read the report. What had started as an unpleasant experience had led to real positive change. She picked up her phone and called Daniel Wright, who was still the chief operations officer at the airline. "Good morning, Maya," Daniel answered cheerfully. "I'm guessing you've seen the latest numbers?" "Just reviewing them now," Maya replied. "They're even better than we hoped. The changes you pushed for have made a real difference," Daniel said. "Not just in the numbers, but in how it feels to work here. There's a new energy in the company." Maya was pleased to hear this. "And how is Brittany doing in her new role?" "She's been amazing," Daniel said with enthusiasm. "The training program she developed has been so successful that other airlines have asked if they can use it. She has a natural talent for explaining complex issues in a way that people can understand and relate to." After their call ended, Maya had another meeting scheduled. A reporter from Business Weekly magazine was coming to interview her about the transformation at Skyway Airlines. The magazine was doing a feature story on companies that had successfully created more inclusive environments. The reporter, a woman named Lisa Diaz, arrived exactly on time. After introductions, they sat down in Maya's office. "Thank you for making time for this interview, Ms. Johnson," Lisa began. "Your story has become something of a legend in the business world. Can you tell me how it all started?" Maya told her about that day on the flight, explaining how she had been denied the same service that other passengers received. She was careful not to focus too much on the negative aspects, but instead emphasized what happened afterward. "The real story isn't about what happened to me," Maya explained. "It's about what we did in response. It would have been easy to just fire the 2 employees involved and move on, but that wouldn't have solved the underlying problem." Lisa nodded, taking notes. "And what was that underlying problem in your view?" A culture that allowed discrimination to happen without consequences, Maya said. There had been complaints before mine, but they were ignored or dismissed. That sent a message that this kind of behavior was acceptable. How did you go about changing that culture? Lisa asked. Maya described the comprehensive approach they had taken, the new training programs for all employees, the anonymous reporting system for passengers and staff, the promotion of people like Brittany who demonstrated a commitment to treating everyone fairly. We also looked at our hiring practices, Maya added. We wanted to make sure our staff reflected the diversity of our passengers. That's been a slower process, but we're making progress there too. Lisa looked impressed. The results speak for themselves. Your airline was just recognized by the National Diversity Council as one of the most improved companies in your industry. Maya nodded. That recognition means a lot to us. But what means even more are the letters we get from passengers who notice the difference. She showed Lisa a folder containing messages from customers. One was from an elderly couple who wrote about how kindly they were treated by the staff. Another was from a Muslim family who felt welcomed and respected throughout their journey. There was even a note from Frank Miller, the businessman who had sat next to Maya on that fateful flight. I recently flew with your airline again, Frank had written, and the difference was remarkable. Thank you for turning an unfortunate incident into positive change. As the interview continued, Lisa asked about the personal impact of the experience. You could have just complained and moved on, she said. Why did you decide to take such decisive action? Maya thought carefully before answering. Throughout my career, I've faced discrimination in various forms. Usually, I dealt with it quietly and just worked harder to prove myself. But that day on the plane, I realized I was in a unique position to do more than just overcome it personally. I had the power to prevent it from happening to others. That's a powerful perspective, Lisa commented. We all have different spheres of influence, Maya continued. Some people can change a conversation. Some can change a company policy. I happen to be in a position to change an entire company culture. It would have been irresponsible not to use that opportunity. After the interview, Maya had lunch with Brittany, who was in New York for a training conference. They met at a small restaurant near Maya's office. I just finished an interview about all the changes at the airline, Maya told her. Your name came up quite a bit. Brittany smiled. I'm still amazed at how everything turned out. When I decided to speak up on that flight, I was just trying to do the right thing. I never imagined it would lead to all this. That's often how change happens, Maya said. One person decides to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. They talked about the future of the airline and new initiatives they were planning. Brittany had ideas for expanding the training program to include not just avoiding discrimination, but actively creating an inclusive environment. After lunch, Maya returned to her office for an afternoon of meetings. One was particularly important, a discussion about potentially acquiring another airline. As Horizon Innovations continued to grow, Maya was looking for new opportunities to expand their influence and bring positive changes to more industries. Later that evening, Maya attended a business awards dinner. Horizon Innovations was being recognized for its innovative approach to company acquisitions. As she listened to the introduction before going on stage to accept the award, Maya reflected on how far she had come. Growing up, she had faced countless people who told her what she couldn't do because of her race or gender. Each time she had proven them wrong through hard work and determination. The incident on the plane 6 months ago had been just one more example of the discrimination she had faced throughout her life. But this time, the outcome had been different. Instead of just overcoming it personally, she had created change that affected thousands of people. That was the power of being in a leadership position, the ability to transform negative experiences into positive results for many others. As Maya walked onto the stage to accept the award, she received a standing ovation. The business community recognized what she had accomplished, but Maya knew that the real success wasn't measured in awards or applause. It was measured in the daily experiences of people who were now treated with dignity and respect. In her acceptance speech, Maya didn't mention the incident on the plane. She didn't need to. Instead, she talked about the responsibility that came with power and success. When we reach positions of influence, she said, we have a choice. We can use that influence just for our own benefit, or we can use it to create a better world for everyone. At Horizon Innovations, we choose the latter. As she finished her speech, Maya thought about how a simple denied meal on an airplane had led to all this. Life worked in strange ways sometimes. The very people who had tried to make her feel small and unimportant had instead given her the opportunity to make a huge impact. Maya smiled as she left the stage, already thinking about what challenge she would tackle next.